Hi, this is Paul Vanderorph with Ridgecrest Talk, and we have the big shoe today, our episode, with a genuine circus clown, Danny the Clown from the Grimaldi Circus. Danny, welcome to the show, and I notice you're wearing a little bit of makeup. Why don't you tell us a little bit about clowning with the circus, how you enjoy that?
Well, I enjoy it a lot. I love it. It's something that it's exciting. It's something new, and it's something new every day. It's, you know, the different towns, different cities. It's the audience. I love performing in front of the audience. Love making the kids laugh, hearing them giggle. Oh, look, there's the clown. That's the first thing you hear, and you already know it's going to be a good crowd. So it's
right. Now, Danny's here this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, out at the fairgrounds with the Grimaldi show, and in getting to talk with Danny, it's real obvious the number of years as a third-generation performer that it takes to improve your craft. What would you say, how long did it take for you to start to feel comfortable? How old were you when you started?
I started performing not as a clown, but just in my dad's dog act at 7 years old. So I've been doing it for quite some time now, but started in the dog act, and then little by little, my grandpa saw, you know, oh, look, he's funny, look at him, he's doing something funny, you know. He's got the spark, so let's teach him to do clown, you know, let's see what he's got. And then one next day, the other, I was doing the clown gag with my grandpa, and you know, it's really, I'm proud to be doing my clown gags with my grandpa, but not anymore, because he's retired, but and that moment to do a clown gag with your grandpa, and you're third generation, he's first generation, it's, you know, you got a little honor there.
Right, and it's kind of a difference in the circus where, as a family member growing up in the circus, you started at a very young age. It's like you didn't know anything different. Well, growing up here at China Lake, I ran away and joined the circus when I was about 21. I went to the Ringling Clown School and traveled the Clyde Beatty show. And I can just imagine somebody out there in the audience today is working over on the base, or is watching the show and saying, you know, I've always wanted to be a clown. And wouldn't that be a great thing to run away and to have some fun being on the road with something different? Obviously, you can just tell from talking to you the energy and excitement and the joy that you have when you're performing. What would you say would be the harder part that the people don't see when you're not actually performing? What is the harder part of being on the road as a performer?
Well, let's say you're 1 week in a town, and let's say you're going to New York City. You don't have enough time to explore and go to town and see New York City. And to just, you know, set up the tent, perform, and then have to leave, and I think that's the hardest part. And not being able to perform, like, you know, you got to travel to the next town. Just traveling, I can't wait to, you know, you miss it, you know. Even though it's for just 2-3 days, it's just something, you know, keeps you alive, you know. It's
right. I remember one story. At the Ringling Clown School, we had gone to the Ringling Museum, which has a lot of wonderful art from Europe. And they said, okay, there's good news and bad news. The good news, you get to go see these wonderful European paintings, but you only have half an hour, and then you have to get back on the bus. And so I think I can relate when you're saying you're going to these different parts of the country. New York has so much to see, but guess what? You got to be here ready to perform, and before you know it, you're moving on to the next place. You're with the Grimaldi show this year, but in talking to you over those years, what are some of the other shows that you've worked with?
Well, I've done 8 years with Ringling. I've done 6 years with George Carden. I've done 4 years with Jody Jordan. I just recently worked with Circus Pages. I did 1.5 years there. And then I came to work with my dad, you know. Who gets to work side-by-side clowns with your pops, you know?
Right. And you know, here growing up in the community here, I've noticed over the years 3 circuses that I can remember coming. Years ago, Carson and Barnes, which is a larger circus on the West Coast, had come, and they had worked out at the fairgrounds just without a tent out in the rodeo arena. And then about 4 years ago, we had the Osorio brothers, also from Las Vegas. And then last year was the first time I saw your show, and I remember very clearly bringing my own 12-year-old daughter to the show. And I wasn't just watching the show, but I was watching, this is the way they set up the tent, this is the way they take it down. Watch how much work is really going on behind the scenes. And what I notice is that this show has a lot of talent more talent in a small show than what you normally see. What are some of the other acts that you do besides the clowning?
Well, like I told you earlier, I started out with my dad's dog act. Well, you know, you always have to have a backup. So my dad figured out, well, if I get sick, injured, or, you know, one of these days I get tired of doing the circus, which is very hard to get tired of doing the circus. I've done we have the only Old English sheepdog act in the United States. Haven't seen in Europe. We have miniature horses with their colored manes, like ponies, miniature horses with colors on their manes. I've worked with Angora goats, George Carlin. I worked with elephants. Other acts I've done is besides clowns, I do the Globe of Death, the motorcycles in the sphere. I've done the trampoline comedy, you know, jumping, falling off the trampoline, other stuff like that.
So man, that's just amazing to sit there and think about that. So you're about 20 years of experience so far?
I would say 16, 17 years.
That's getting close to 20. Would you say that energy level as a clown now compared to when you were a little kid, do you think it's easier now after all these years, or does it get harder as you get older?
Well, let's just say I like drinking a Red Bull before a show. You know, it gives me a little, it's like a kickstart on a dirt bike, you know, and it works perfectly good. If not, Monster will do.
Energy boost just before you go out there, huh?
Red Bull gives you wings.
Well, I can tell you, as being a little bit older, I took a break when my kids were born, and then as I've come back recently and tried to put on the makeup and so forth, that, you know, it's not as easy as it was when you're a younger person, and to see that energy that you have, it's just really inspiring to me, and I think that's the type of thing that people out there need to recognize, that when you get an opportunity to do something that you enjoy so much, you got to really go into that with 100%, because you're not getting younger. It's not going to get easier as you get older. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you tend to agree with?
Well, you're correct on that. You have to be 110%. You got to be.
All right, let me just hold on right here. This is Paul Vanderorph with Ridgecrest Talk. We have to go for a break, and we'll be right back. Vanderorph back with Ridgecrest Talk with our guest today, Danny the Clown, who has stepped out for just a minute. And I just wanted to let people know a little bit of the history of Ridgecrest with clowning. We had, back in 1990-91, a clown group meeting in Ridgecrest that was coming out to the fairgrounds. And in particular, there was one person who worked on the base that just loved to clown, and his name was Joe Chesney, known as JoJo the Clown. And I remember Joe, being about my age now, how is it that we're going to have that energy level to go out and clown? And here's Danny coming back. Good to see you, Danny. This is Danny Rodriguez, also known as Danny the Clown, but you're looking a little different now, which is good to see. And I just wanted to kind of finish this story. We had talked about Joe Chesney, and he came to me and he said, Paul, he said, how in the world am I going to clown and have this energy level and this excitement that you have? And I said, hey, you're not young anymore. Don't try to keep up with these younger clowns. You got to slow down and take it a little bit easier. And sure enough, Joe just had such a passion for clowning that he passed away with a heart attack the weekend of the fair here at the Desert Empire Fairgrounds. And it was just really tough to hear that loss when you lose a fellow performer. But if you go to the local park right next to Gateway School there on the Upjohn Park, to this day the playground is known as JoJo the Clown Playground in honor of JoJo the Clown, one of our local clowns who just had a great passion for entertainment. And now as we transition back, we had just a minute there for you to get off the makeup. Clowning is just one part of what you do, and I don't think people realize that. We talk about all the different acts that you do and the animal acts and so forth, but what about the other part of the circus, the travel, the setting up and the teardown? How much of that kind of work do you have to do?
Well, depends on your arrangement. Like, it depends. You get paid extra if you set up, tear down, you know. Best thing about it is traveling. You get to see everything. I mean, I worked with Ringling 8 years. I saw all 50 states except Hawaii and Alaska. Been to Mexico, I've been to Puerto Rico, been to Canada numerous times, and it's exciting. You get to see new states. I mean, the St. Louis Arc, I got to see go to Hershey Park, get to go to San Diego Zoo, and it's also the thing about Ringling is they have a really good school program there, and luckily the teacher I got, she used to love doing field trips. So any historical, like the Liberty Bell, we got to see the Liberty Bell. Anything that she would also do, like our schoolwork with the field trips. Like we'd be doing history, like the Liberty Bell. We'd go see the Liberty Bell, learn about the crack, and
see, how does that work? Here you are, a student. You're as part of the Ringling Circus, and you got to keep up your grades. How much work was that? How many hours a day would you have for your studying?
Well, it depends also on what grade you're in. I had 4 hours of school. And they would give me my assignments. They'd have a teacher on-hands teacher there. She would raise your hand like any normal teacher.
Did they ever say, hey, you're getting detention, you're not getting your grades up, you're going to have to stay out of the show this week?
That's detention for us right there. I mean, if we wanted to perform like any other day, we would have to do our schoolwork. No schoolwork, no performing. So it's, you know, it's kind of hard not to want to perform or do your schoolwork, so we'd be on subject.
Right, and I remember being on the road, like playing at West Point, getting to go to the museum, playing at Annapolis, going to those different places. That was just, it was an extra bonus that it gives you an understanding that people that don't get a chance to travel they don't have. You know, they just haven't seen as many places. And I can understand what you're saying, that's the frustration is, yeah, you got an hour, but you could spend a whole day learning about wherever it is you are. There's a little bit of different question as you're growing up and you're your third generation. Do you see yourself as an adult having kids, and are those kids going to grow up in a circus, or do you see them being more of a traditional stay-at-home, go-to-school family?
Well, you know, I would kind of like follow my dad's steps, you know, like he did with me, or my grandpa saw. He would see me perform in the dog act, and he'd be like, look, he's good at the dog act, but I think he would do a lot better as clown, or maybe do both, clown and dog act. So if I have my kids and if they're interested in doing it, great. But I would first, you know, put them in school, see how they do in school, and if they don't want to do school, I'd kind of, you know, a little pressure there to finish school, and after school they can do whatever they want, either go to college or join the circus.
Right. So you might have one kid who's like, man, this was great, let's perform every day, and then the other one's like, you know what, I'm not really getting as much out of this. And so you actually have two brothers that have had different experiences. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your brother who lives in Las Vegas?
Well, my brother in Las Vegas, he's a high rigger for the Cirque du Soleil show, the one that's at the MGM, Ka. He's a high rigger there, and he's a good performer. He was a good performer. Now you can consider he's retired now. He used to juggle. He used to work the dog act. He used to work the horse act. He didn't get to do the globe act like I did. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit. You say a high rigger. I think a lot of people out there don't understand what the rigging and what a rigger would do. What would be a type of example of what a high rigger might do in a circus?
Well, do you see the people when they're like swinging around and doing all these acrobatic stuff in the air?
Right, the aerial acts.
Aerial acts. He checks their safety cables. He checks their harnesses. He makes sure everything's in order. I mean, there's you know the bungees, when they jump on the bungees and they start doing all these flips on the bungee. Those bungees can take only a certain amount of performance. So he would keep track of, okay, each bungee can only do 50 performance. So 49, 50, he would go up there, switch the bungees, put brand new ones, check, there's these things called shackles that you can put one cable and hook them up another with the shackle. You make sure the safety pin's on there correctly, and mostly make everything safe for the performers.
Right, I can imagine in the aerial act that'd be pretty important. I remember that I was always taught, you can't just trust that everything's going to be done right. Always go through and check your own equipment. And so just can't imagine as an aerial actor how important that would be. And I think I remember sometime this last year, it could have been Ringling or one of the other shows, that they actually had an aerial act where they were hanging by their hair and something broke and they ended up having a number of injuries.
Yes, I actually have a good friend there. Her name is Julissa. The circus I worked for, Pages, they're family with her. They're, I think, cousins, something like that. And yeah, you always have to check your rigging and all that. But it was just, you know, freak of an accident. You know, it's
right. And I think that's something with everything in life. You can have an accident and you have to decide, am I going to stop or am I going to keep going? Let's go ahead and take another break. I'm here with Danny Rodriguez from the Grimaldi Circus here in Ridgecrest with Ridgecrest Talk. And, you know, I think we're going to see if you got one more thing to show us after this break. Well, welcome back. This is Paul Vanderorph with the Ridgecrest Talk. Today's episode, The Big Shoe. We're having a lot of fun talking some stories with a great circus performer who's just stepping back in his next role. This is Danny Rodriguez, who's now dressed up as a motorcycle rider, doing something a little bit more dangerous. This is a, what do they call it, the Globe of Death?
the Globe of Death, Sphere of Death, anything.
Now, every day you get in there, is there an actual risk, or is this something that's real easy?
Well, I check my equipment every day. I mean, I check my tires. I make sure, you know, bike's running good. I even check the globe. You know, it's made out of steel, but, you know, you still get some breaks here and there. And I know how to weld, so if I see a break, just go ahead and weld it, fix it, get it ready for the show.
Now, I remember as a child, when I was 13, I had a bone tumor, and the doctors came in there, that key moment you remember. The doctor said, you're probably never going to walk again, but you're never going to play any sports, you're not going to be able to run, you're not going to do any of these things that you've done as an active kid. And I just didn't believe them. I stopped, and I remember as my 9th grade year in high school, I wasn't allowed to play any sports. But by 10th grade, I was active again, and I was running around having lots of fun. I think the big test was when the Marine Corps wanted to see if I could qualify based on my ankle, if it was going to disqualify me, and it didn't. And so I've been able to go on and do a lot of things that have just been a plus in my life after an injury. And we were talking before the break about the rigging and how important that is on the aerial acts, and how we even had an injury not too long ago that actually made the press. You were talking a little bit that you had an accident, but it wasn't riding this motorcycle Globe of Death, but it was actually off the circus. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Well, sadly, I had a car accident, me and my friend. I took a curve too quick. I was wearing my seatbelt, but I took a curve too quick, and I went straight into a tree.
Wow.
And I broke my femur, cut my eye right here. Luckily, well, the femur is the biggest bone in your body. And actually, I did have a Globe of Death accident.
Oh, you have had an accident in the ring as well?
I actually did have live performance. In the Globe of Death, it's, you know, the sphere's like here, and this is what they call the band. That's where you ride normal.
Right.
I was riding normal, and the other guy was cutting. You know, just cutting, and just out of nowhere, he just decided to move a little bit. He felt a little weird, so he moved. And that
got the timing off.
Just the timing perfect. He came and T-boned me. Fell right down, 2 bikes on top of me, and he just fell on his back and just slid down. I broke 3 ribs, tore my spleen, fractured my hand in 2 spots, and concussion.
Well, now we've gone from Danny the Clown to you're starting to sound like Evel Knievel out there,
yeah.
where you're coming back injury after injury. Is that having any effect on you now being able to perform, or are you still young enough that you're still able to keep going? How is that?
Well, luckily, with all the injuries I've had, I guess it's luck or God or whatever you want to call it, but luckily it hasn't stopped me, and that's really grateful for that. And I had a lot of people there to support me, back me up, you know, you're going to be fine. And also, I don't know about, you know, just normal people, but I think circus people, like, they have that special energy, you know, it's just like nothing can stop us or something, you know, it's just...
Right. Now your father, you said that you kind of butt heads with your father sometimes because you're very similar.
Yeah.
That same drive and that same energy.
Character.
That's typical of circus performers.
Yeah.
And I came and picked you up at the circus while they were tearing the tent down today. And he didn't say a lot to me, but he looked at me. He said, "Have him back soon." And it meant a lot, just saying a little bit. I knew exactly what he meant. It's like, you're helping tear down the tent, and he needs you to help because you still have a lot of energy.
That's my boy right there.
And so I just looked at him and smiled, and I said, "I'll get him back as quick as I can, and I'll be coming back, and I'll be helping to tear down as well," realizing just how much work that is for coming out. And I think it's also special. I could just see your parents when I came and introduced myself and said, "Hey, we were looking at doing a TV show," that they just have a lot of experience as well. And I just can't imagine how proud they are of the energy level and how you're coming back after these injuries. Still, I mean, that passion's got to be strong to keep coming back and enjoying this. Do you see this doing this another 2, 3, 5 years from now?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all in the body. I mean, you know yourself, you know your body, you know how much you can push yourself. I mean, I had my accident in December, January, mid-February, I was already like, no more crutches.
Right, now you're talking about your car accident. This wasn't 5 years ago. You're saying your car accident where you broke your leg was only like 9 months ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had an accident I had the accident this 29th of December, and that was right after, you know, Christmas.
Right, just before the New Year.
Yeah.
And now you're already back performing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's you know, really good to hear, and I think that's, you know, what people also need to realize out there, whatever your circumstance and situation is it's that resilience. It's not how high you get, but it's how high you bounce when you have that challenge that you need to bounce back from. And that's just really great to hear from you, you know, some of the excitement on that. Let's talk a little bit more just about Grimaldi Circus and the way that show's going. This is only what you're in your second season, because you came here last year, so it's kind of a new show, the Grimaldi Circus. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been working a year, going on second year, but usually around this time in August, all the shows stop, and we're gonna stop here in August, and we're gonna do some more publicity, book some more towns, just normal.
Right.
What other circuses?
So we're kind of getting to the end of the summer. The summer season's winding down. The kids will go back to school. And I remember last year you came a little bit later. It was kind of like a winter crew. A lot of the performers are off for the winter, and they're coming back together as a winter show. And I remember some of the clowns that I had worked with. One would be going to this place, another one would be going to that place to pick up some extra money in the off season. A challenge that I think to myself is as a community in Ridgecrest, how do we embrace the circus? How do we say, we want you guys to come back? How do we get our citizens more involved as a circus town? And we talked about that. Some towns just are really warm to the circus, and they really enjoy having you. Other towns, they're just kind of lukewarm, and they're not real interested. And I think that's a challenge that I have as being a supporter of the show, that I'd like to see you guys come back next year. Do you think you guys are going to be able to come back to Ridgecrest for this next year?
Yeah, we would like it here a lot. It's a great town. We liked a lot we worked at. We did have a pretty good crowd, but we'd like to have more people come to our show. It's a good family show. It's you know, it's basic stuff. It's traditional, you know. Clowns, animals. We don't want to bring exotic animals. We more like domestic animals. You know, it's easier. It's a lot less paperwork also. And it's just, you know, we got acrobats, and we got a girl that hangs from her hair. We have the Globe of Death. And
well, it sounds like, you know, I'm ready to go out to the show right now, but it's about time to wrap up. I'm here with Danny the clown, Danny the working guy, and Danny the Globe of Death rider, doing it all at the Grimaldi Circus. And this is Ridgecrest Talk, and thank you very much.